To lot number 236, a 1975 Ford Escort Mark II RS1800.
Well, hello everyone and welcome to my coverage of the iconic auctioneers sale here at the Birmingham NEC for the Classic Motor Show. These have always been super popular on the channel. My walk around of the cars that are up for sale here, and it's a nice guessing game because at the time I'm filming, the auction hasn't yet taken place. So I'm going to be having a wander around, filming what I think are some of the most interesting cars here, and I want you to have a guess what they're going to go for. And at the end of it, I will reveal the actual auction price, and well, let's see how close we get. So without further ado, let's go for a wander and see what's here for sale.
First up, we're going to look at some remarkable Ford RS cars and some astonishing auction results for them.
So just a moment ago, I asked the auctioneers themselves what they thought the high points of this sale were, and they pointed me to this car as being one of the potential high points of the sale. So, of course, this is a Ford RS200, but two things make this extra special, as if an RS200 itself wasn't special enough. This is an RS200S, of which only a handful were made, and this is one of just two that were finished in red compared to the usual white. Wow, 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 wow. Oh, look at this, cheeky little louvers. Shall we have a little look? There it is. It's of course a car originally developed to go Group B rallying, and arguably the RS200 was one of the cars that helped bring the whole series to an end. This being a road car, not having been modified for competition. Now then, are you sitting comfortably? Estimate on this is £280,000 to £340,000. Wowzers trousers. What did this sell for on the day? Well, this remarkably rare RS200S sold for
£382,000. Good grief. Smashed right over the top end of the estimate by a significant amount, and clearly showing that the passion and love for these 80s and 90s ultra high performance cars is still evident, especially when it's a car as rare as an RS200S. Wow, what an amazing result.
To the casual observer, this Mark II Escort might look like an RS2000, but on the rear you'll note RS1800, and this is one of the instances where less is more, because the RS1800 didn't have the 2-litre Pinto in. This was a car built basically for homologation, and under the bonnet you'll find the legendary BDA Cosworth engine in here. So RS1800, this is one of the highlights of the sale. And unusually as well, you can see this still has its original air cleaner on. Ordinarily this gets yeeted out of the car. There's a pair of carbs normally hanging down there, but no, with this being a production car, this just has a regular twin choke on that very special BDA engine. Now then, this is going to be very interesting because although of course this is an FIA car, you could turn this into a race car. It'd be criminal to do such a thing to a fully restored car like this. So what's the value on this? Well, this is estimated at, are you sitting comfortably, £200,000 to £250,000.
This was one of two RS1800s in the auction, this one a fully restored car. However, the auction result was not at all, I think, what anyone was expecting. Here's the actual result.
And I can open the bidding here then. At 140,000 is the opening bid. 140,000. 140,000 then. 140,000. 145. 145,000. Thank you. 145,000. What about you here in the centre then? 155. There's the bid at 155. 160,000. Now it's against you, sir. 160,000. There's the bid here then. 160,000. 165,000. 170,000. We do then at 170,000. You're saying no. Well, thank you for your bid, sir. 170,000. I will take a 2 from you if it helps. 172,000 if it helps. Otherwise at 170,000. Any more bids now at 170,000? You're absolutely sure then at 170,000? I'll take another 2 anywhere, but at 170,000 then. Fair warning to you all then at 170,000, all done. 170,000, thank you.
£170,000. Well, on any day, someone would say, gosh, that's incredible for a Mark II Escort. However, remember, the reserve on this, the low end of the reserve, was 200, with the upper being 250,000. So this one's actually fallen well short of its auction reserve. Now, how did the other RS1800 fare in the auction? The one that was an unrestored car, the one that was a survivor car. Let's go and see.
And so from one white RS1800 onto another one. Now this is not the first car, however, this is utterly remarkable in its own way because this is not a restored car. This is an original, unrestored RS1800. So everything that I've already said about that other one over there holds true, except that this is an unrestored car. Who on earth took this away and didn't turn it into a rally car? Well, someone did, and you will pay a privilege for that. 34,000 miles on the clock. This is estimated at between 260 and 300,000 pounds.
Well, as it happens, that lower end estimate was pretty much bang on the money. This RS1800 Mark II, the unrestored car, found a new home at £261,000. Clearly on the day, it was the unrestored original car that people really lusted after. Next up, we're going to have a look at some of the celebrity-owned cars that went over the auction lot, including one with a very royal past history.
So diving straight in is one of the big standout lots here. The Lamborghini Espada ex Harry Metcalfe of Harry's Garage, for all you YouTubers out there. This one quite a unique car. It's one of only 2 known with this transparent roof here. And a real surprise, Harry Metcalfe has been clearing out a few of his cars from the garage. These are well documented cars on TV. This of course also is featured in Tyrrell's garage renovation videos. This one estimated at 90 to 110,000 pounds. I have to say, in the flesh, it looks every bit as good as it does on Harry's channel. The interior is just stunning. What a wonderful expression of the 70s GT car this is. So, as I say, at the moment I'm filming this. I don't know what this went under the hammer for, but via the wonders of television, I can reveal that this sold for
£132,750. A great result for an Espada, but one that also reflects not only the celebrity connection, but also the additional tuning and work carried out to the car by Tyrrell's Classic Garage. One of the best Espadas in the world? Well, on the day, someone certainly thought it was £132,000 worth.
And then the second major car to come from the Harry Metcalfe collection. This is of course Harry's fully restored, you might even say resto modded, XJ V12. Absolutely stunning car, and I'm sure, like a lot of followers of Harry's Garage, quite a surprise that Harry has decided to let this go. So, as Harry said in his video the other week, no one's really sure what this is going to go for. It is estimated at 60 to 80. However, is this the most famous XJ12C in the world? I suppose it must be at this point. And of course it's fairly unique, having had the full engine build and the full mechanical works from Tom Lenthal. and being a manual, a V12 manual, which Jaguar never built, and this one a 5-speed as well. What an absolutely stunning thing this is. So again, via the wonders of YouTube time travel, we now know that this car sold for £157,500. It was one of the big results on the day, and I think something that surprised a lot of people. It's absolutely smashing through the top end of that £80,000 estimate. However, of course, again, not only the celebrity connection, but the wealth of the work carried out by Tom Lenthal on this car and the specification surely made it a very, very attractive car on the day. And then here we have another one from the Harry's Garage collection, this time a lovely 86-inch Series 1 Land Rover. Very nice kind of patina look on this, but generally very original. Incredibly charming Series 1 Land Rovers are, absolutely lovely. This one in nice condition, and I spot also has overdrive, making it that bit more usable. What's the value of this one? Well, this is not a car that's featured on Harry's Garage channel extensively. It's certainly not as famous as the Jaguar or the Espada in that respect, so how much of a weighting Harry's ownership will have on this, we shall only see at auction time. This has an estimate of 10 to 12, which I think is quite reasonable. On the day, this sold for
£17,437. I think that's a really good result for this car. It was quite a bit above the top end of estimate, and in this case, I would say that the celebrity ownership definitely added some weighting to the final hammer price. I'd have thought somewhere between 10 and 15 was about right for a clean Series 1 like this. So yeah, I think someone has decided to bag themselves a little bit of a YouTube star in buying this delightful old Series 1. What do you think? Let me know in the comments.
So the last iconic auctioneer's video, I covered the ex-Prince Charles Land Rover Defender, and here we have another Regal Royal Land Rover product, this time ex-Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II's Range Rover L322. Now this is estimated at £50,000 to £60,000, which is considerably above the price you'd pay for any regular L322. But will the Royal Connection see it make its money? So on the day, this, it must be said, very fine, very lovely example of an L322 sold for
£66,375. That's a massive result for an L322 and a very significant premium over what you'd expect to pay even for a tidy one of these vehicles. No doubt the late Queen's provenance really added to the sale price.
So we've actually got a very, very nice cross-section of traditional Land Rovers here. Let's dive in and see what's what, because there's some interesting variations here. Now, while we're talking about Range Rovers, let's have a look at one of the most maligned of all of the Range Rover generations, the P38. Now, I have a real soft spot for these. I spent some very memorable time with a P38 in the noughties, and actually, when they're in good shape, they're fabulous things. The problem is, they're often not in fabulous shape. This one, why am I filming this? Well, this has done, according to the window sticker, 8,136 miles. What on earth? When did you last see a low mileage, immaculate P38 like this? Never is when I've last seen one. So this has an estimate of 25 to 30, which if it does go for that, it'll be one of the highest sale prices for a P38 in ever such a long time. So on the day, this magnificent P38 Range Rover sold for
£32,625. Butter my crumpets! That has to be the highest price I've ever seen for a P38. Does this mean that they're starting to be collectible? Well, watch this space.
So many people are not aware that in the 90s there were a variation of the Land Rover Defender that was built for the South African market with the petrol 2.8 litre BMW straight six engine. Now, as you would expect, these are exceedingly rare to find outside of their home country, and they do offer a really unique experience because you have what was actually quite an advanced engine for the time in a very traditional vehicle. Now, having one here would be remarkable, but right next to it, there's another one. Both of these ex-South African market vehicles. This one here is estimated at 32 to 35, and the one next to it is estimated at 35 to 40.
Interesting this. Only one of these South African spec Defenders sold. The soft top was not sold. However, checking the auction footage back, that was bid up to £29,000, but no sale. Now, the station wagon variant there, if you go and check over on the website, it says sold for an undisclosed sum. However, checking the auction footage back, that bid up to £28,000, so that means that someone has paid, by my maths, over £31,000 for that vehicle, including auction fees.
Now, at first glance, this may appear to be a Series 2A Land Rover. However, there are a few things that tip you off that all is not as it seems. The wider track, these very small little wheel arch extensions. And if you look closely, the coil springs. Yes, this is in fact actually a backdated Defender underneath it, and one that I think has been quite well carried out. What I like the most about this is, of course, it has God's own power plant of a Land Rover underneath the bonnet. This has a Rover V8 in, a 4.6 litre Rover V8, and as it should be, that is paired to a manual transmission. But what I think is really nice about this is that the interior is as per a Series 2. I quite like this. I think this is nice. I think this is a good way of going about things, actually, is that you have the improved road manners of a coil-sprung Defender and the stronger drivetrain, but you have those classic Series Land Rover looks to it. This is absolutely lovely. So, what price do we reckon on this then? Well, it would not be a cheap vehicle to build. Estimate on this is £42,000 to £46,000.
And on the day was not sold, having been bid only up to £33,000. Surely a lot lower than what it would actually cost to build this vehicle, but having chatted to some of my friends in the classic Land Rover community, probably about right for what is quite a unique spec and not everyone's cup of tea. I'd have had it though.
And now, we were talking about Series 1 Land Rovers earlier. Of the Series 1s, this is actually my pick. 5152 Series 1. This meant that it benefited from the slightly larger 2 litre inlet over exhaust engine, so maybe a little bit more usable than the early 1600, but it still has that tiny little short 80-inch wheelbase. It has nearly all of the look of the very, very earliest Series 1s. And I have to say, this one is particularly pretty. It's been very nicely restored. Original Lucas D lamps on the back, semaphores. That's a very, very nicely restored early Series 1. Auction estimate on this is £20,000 to £25,000. I'll be interested to see what this goes for. Prices of Series 1s really spiked a few years ago. It'll be interesting to see what kind of buyers are around for this. On the day, this sold for
£21,375. Auction estimate, pretty much on the money, does show it looks like Series 1 prices have really slumped in recent years, perhaps indicating a shift in the kind of people that are interested in classic landies.
So I have a vested interest in this lot. This is a 90 county V8 station wagon, a very rare beast. Why do I know that? Well, because if you look in the background shots of some of the Motorhouse garage videos, you'll see that there's one in our garage. Yep, I grew up with one of these in basically the same colour, very, very close to our heart as a family. And let me tell you, a factory 90 V8 county station wagon was a rare, rare car 20, 30 years ago. Nowadays, they are virtually extinct due to the ravages of rust, neglect, and tragically a lot of them had the V8 ripped out and a TDI put in instead. Now, I'll be very interested to see what this goes for. This apparently has come out of long-term storage, but in all the important areas, bulkhead looks good, interior looks good, looks all very original. Knowing these cars well, this does look very original, and being a C-plate, it's also nice because it's got the very early pre-Defender features like the lift-up door handles. This is nice. This is very, very nice. This is. This would clean up a treat. It really would. Just a good, I'd give the paint a good mop, clean it up, enjoy it. So this has apparently only got 38,000 miles on the clock from new. Estimate is 15 to 20, which I think is extremely realistic. So on the day, this rare 90 V8 county station wagon sold for
£14,625. I think a really fair price for this. You could either use it as is, or as I suspect might happen, a dealer's going to sweep in on this, clean it up and put it up for a good premium. And finally, we're going to have a look at some of the bargains, the hidden gems, and some of the final surprises from the show that I found having a walk around. From 80s hot hatches to classic Jaguars, there were some quite surprising lots. Let's delve in and have a look.
So, was there an era of car that best summed up the special edition more than the 1980s? And the eagle-eyed of you will have spotted that this is a Lacoste edition Peugeot 205. Now, I can't remember the last time I saw a 205 that was as clean as this, let alone a Lacoste edition, which of course has all the brand aesthetics and the tie-ins here. There you go, with the Lacoste badge on the back. Lovely full-length glass sunroof and the Lacoste Dragon on the steering wheel. Now, even more remarkable is that this apparently has covered just 26,000 miles from new. This has been offered without reserve, but the sticker estimate is 10 to 20,000 pounds. I have absolutely no idea what this is going to sell for, but you will in a minute. On the day, this Lacoste edition 205 sold for
£11,700. I don't know if that's a good price. I don't know if it's a bad price. What do you think? Would you have paid nearly 12 grand for it? It was at the bottom end of estimate, but that was the price on the day.
And now onto a car that's become a pop culture icon for a lot of people, the AE86 Toyota Corolla. Of course, you can't mention AE86 Toyota Corolla without mentioning Initial D or Kaiichi Tsuchiya. This is a nice example. A lot of these have been very, very, very heavily modified. I'm seeing just a cheeky set of wheels, maybe a little drop on here. What do we say about it? Well, obviously, this is a Japanese import, so there's not going to be an enormous amount of history with it. But this is estimated at 35 to 40,000 pounds. I will be very interested to see what this ends up selling for.
Well, plot twist, it did not sell. Checking back the auction footage, the opening bid was at 25, it got bid up to 28 and then stalled. Interesting. Does this mean the bubbles burst on AE86 prices?
And then we move on to a car that would have been the scourge of the streets of Mansfield when I was growing up. It's the Escort XR3, not an I, an XR3, the original carburetted version. And the windscreen information tells me that this is believed to be the only surviving press launch car in original condition. Now, I remember seeing archive footage of a car very much like this being driven by Jackie Stewart Could this be the one? I don't know. However, it does look well. Estimate on this is £20,000 to £25,000. I've seen some pretty wild numbers for fast Fords recently. So on the day, this XR3 sold for
an undisclosed sum, according to the Iconic website. However, we can take a guess on this. So, going back and checking the auction footage, the car went under the hammer for £19,500. So if that was the final sale price, adjusting for buyer's premium, we're looking somewhere around about £22,000, which is towards the lower end of the estimate. Would you pay that for a car like that, an XR3 with that kind of provenance? Considering some of the crazy figures we've seen for Fords in this sale, doesn't seem so bad, does it?
So then, Bob, why are you looking at a load of crusty old Jaguars that look like they're one step away from going around the banger racing circuit? Well, I read about this particular car just a couple of days ago, and this is a very special, unique Jaguar. So, under the bonnet you will see it is a V12, it is the famous V12, but lurking just there is a manual gear lever, and not just that, that is a manual overdrive gearbox. Now, if you are not familiar with Jaguar history, Jaguar never made a V12 XJ saloon with a manual gearbox in. More than that, Jaguar never made a manual overdrive gearbox behind a V12. This car is in fact an ex-works developmental car. It was originally built as a 4.2 litre straight six and was the developmental car for the Jaguar XJ12 itself. It's a historically very important and very unique car. However, boy oh boy, this would be a brave restoration, let me tell you that. It has, it's a Leyland product, absolutely, but nonetheless, I think represents something very unique. Imagine swanning around in this with your manual overdrive gearbox behind 300-ish bhp. Very rare, very unique car. Deserves restoring in my opinion.
Hammer price on the day was a laughably cheap £1,575. Good grief. Clearly I may have been the only person that day that appreciated that car. However, plot twist, only a few days ago I happened to be browsing eBay, and what did I see? There it is on eBay, clearly the same car, being flipped for £4,750. So, who knows what's going on here? Maybe someone saw it, got enthusiastic, got it back to the workshop, decided, nah mate, you're alright. So, who knows what the future of this car is? I really, really hope that it gets put back on the road again. I really do.
So, all from the same collection, lots of dusty old Jags. Some of them important, some of them less so. This one I think is quite an important car. So this is Daimler 66 Van Pla, chassis number 1, long wheelbase car. So this is the very first of the big V12 Jags, or in this case a Daimler, and the long wheelbase car with the extra long space in the back. Having ridden in the back of a long wheelbase Daimler just the other weekend, they are exceptionally comfortable. But what people perhaps don't realise about these is this was the fastest four-door saloon car in the world at the time. 140 miles per hour top speed and ultra luxury ride quality and handling. Again, I think a car that is worthy of being saved. A brave restoration though, no doubt. And financially, maybe one that would never make sense. Offered without reserve, the estimate on this is between £5,000 to £7,000. On the day, this Daimler 66 Van Pla sold for
£1,125. It was the only bid at an opening bid of £1,000. Poor old girl. Hope they love you.
And then I'm going to wrap up today with this Series 2 4.2 litre fixed head coupe E-Type. Again, barn find style condition. An E-Type, and you only drove it for 10,000 miles? Good grief. Now, nice colour combo. It's this kind of opalescent blue, red interior, a lot of curb appeal, nice car, desirable car. What is this going to go for?
Yeah.
Now, we have on the ticket an estimate of £35,000 to £40,000. Now, the E-Type market recently has, not to put too fine a point on it, collapsed. Absolutely collapsed. So it will be interesting to see what kind of market there is for this car. So on the day, this E-Type with only 10,000 miles on the clock sold for
An undisclosed sum, but again, doing the same kind of detective work we've done beforehand, we can work out that including buyer's premium, it probably sold for somewhere around £36,000. So just above the lower end of the estimate. Is that a good deal? Was that a good price? Let me know in the comments. And that's all from my coverage of the NEC Classic Motor Show auction. If you've enjoyed this, check out the auction and classic show playlists that I've linked in the description. If you've really enjoyed the video, please do me a big favour, like, share to all your friends, and most of all, please subscribe. It helps me out tremendously. From me, Mr. Bob, it's goodbye and goodbye from another episode of Motorhouse.